prosperity of the American people. The Genesis mission is an all-hands-on-deck effort across government, academia, and industry. Part of the executive order tasks me to help lead the interagency coordination of the mission. In addition to DOE and the national labs, the Genesis mission will involve the National Science Foundation, NIST, NIH, and more to ensure that the full power of the federal scientific resources are brought to bear in building the future. You will see more announcements in the coming weeks and months as additional partners join the Genesis mission. This is a truly historic and exciting moment to be part of the Department of Energy and the U.S. scientific enterprise at large. So thank you all. The White House is thrilled to be working with all of you on the mission and to deliver scientific and technological wins for the American people. Now I will turn to our fearless leader, the Undersecretary of Science, Dario Gil.
Wow, what a day. First, Secretary Wright, Director Kratsios, thank you so much. Part of the reason that we're here is because of your leadership and your support in seeing this vision and manifesting and making it a reality. Look, we live in extraordinary times. We are in the midst of a computing revolution that is going to transform how science and engineering are practiced in our nation. We know that the language of science and engineering is the foundation with which we drive innovation forward, and that innovation is what powers our economy, is what delivers in huge part our national security, and that also what fosters our well-being. And sometimes we use these words, revolution or breakthroughs, but the reality is they don't happen that often. This is a truly special moment. The dream of making all knowledge computable goes back hundreds of years. So humans have already envisioned the possibility of having one day take all the knowledge of the world and build machines to help us as humans reason through that knowledge and act on that knowledge to solve problems faster than ever before. And we've made progress over time and over decades on all of this. But it's only now, quite literally, because of breakthroughs that have happened in the last few years, compounding on decades of progress in semiconductors and high-performance computing, but now with the advent of the AI revolution and with quantum computing to come, that for the first time in human history, that dream of ingesting all knowledge, all scientific and engineering knowledge, all human language, all of that ability for the first time in history, it is going to be able to be computable, and we can marry that platform with our scientists and our engineers across our national laboratories and across the country to help them discover faster and problem solve faster. And we're going to also use that platform to solve a portfolio of problems that are aspirational and inspirational to the entire country. So that is a dual mandate. To build a platform, as Secretary Wright was describing, that means physical infrastructure to build with our partners the world's best supercomputers. Part of this effort, we are going to realize also another multi-decade dream of building a quantum supercomputer. And we are going to bring the best of our high-performance computers, the best of AI supercomputers, the best of quantum computers. We're going to integrate them all together as a single platform, and we're going to connect them also with our exquisite scientific instruments and manufacturing abilities, so that we not only pair the platform with our scientists and engineers, but also in closed-loop systems with the extraordinary infrastructure that has been built over decades by all of you. So these are the components of that, the platform piece and the portfolio of lighthouses, of grand challenges that we're going to go solve. The beautiful part of this mission is that you are all part of it. We need all of you to make it successful. Because in this mission, we are going to touch every data set, every domain, and every expertise that this great department leads. And as Director Kratsios alluded to, through his leadership, we're also going to partner with sister agencies in science and technology and inspire others to follow through with their respective missions. If we can go to the next page, please. So this is an endeavor that is going to require a lot of building of infrastructure, a lot of creating the software environments, the data sets, and the applications. And I want to make a comment about the nature of partnerships as well, just to give some context. The United States has the greatest economy and most dynamic economy in the world. It's a $30 trillion a year economy. That economy is powered by a $1 trillion a year R&D ecosystem. That R&D ecosystem is the combination of the investments that the federal government makes on the order of a couple $100 billion a year. The private sector, over $700 billion or $600 billion a year. And the rest is the university and the philanthropic ecosystem that supports science and engineering. It is therefore a fact that to be successful in the Genesis mission, we need to tap into the entire strength of that ecosystem. We need it to be successful. And one of the things that you're already seeing and you should expect a lot more of is creative, novel partnerships to bring the strength of all that America has to bear. And then we need to combine those efforts towards a shared purpose. And I think that that is an element that is inspirational about what we're launching here today and what the President announced last week, which is uniting that strength under a shared purpose, building something together. In the meeting in the Oval Office, one of the things that the President was asking was, what are you building? Are you building something together? And we are. So that is going to be something that we're going to unite the whole country behind. And all of you in the department should feel incredibly proud that this has been chosen as the best place with which to carry out that work on behalf of the country. Next page, please. So 3 areas that reflect the department: the national security of our country and the mission, and we're going to have a panel discussion in a minute on that, discovery science, and energy innovation. And then in collaboration with Director Kratsios and other sister agencies, we will have the opportunity to touch on health and many other areas that are important for the country. So I hope you all see yourselves reflected and you think very carefully too of what are the natures of problems that you want to solve differently because of this computing revolution. And so every program office, the entire scope of the national laboratories will have an opportunity to imagine what is possible here. And on the next page, just to give you a sense of the enthusiasm that is bottom up, there are hundreds of proposals, of ideas that are coming forth across our entire national laboratory and entire our program offices, imagining the possibilities of what is going to be possible to do differently. Ultimately, we want to at least double the productivity and impact of America's R&D within a decade. And we set ourselves a challenge to do that goal, to achieve that goal in half that time across the national laboratories. So we have our work cut out. There's going to be a lot of fun as well. We're going to move with a lot of energy and passion in getting things done. Every day matters a great deal. One of the things also when I was thinking in the comparison of Manhattan projects and what happened with Apollo, there was a lot of context that drove the urgency in the execution. But we are also in a moment where it feels like the world is at an inflection point. So there ought to be a lot of context and urgency in what we're trying to do. But that is something that I would like all of you to think about every day, is how can we work together to deliver on this for the American people, to deliver with the urgency that is required, because we do have a lot at stake. Science and technology and engineering are the new currency of power in the world. It makes a big difference that we are successful in these endeavors. And I'll tell you that we are going to deliver it. And on that spirit of unity, I'm going to invite now a panel so that you get to hear across a set of different stakeholders. So if I can invite, Greg Connor to come in, and Admiral Papano, and John Wagner, and Brian Spears. Oh, sorry, before that, I was jumping the gun. I apologize. So one, core partner in the execution of this mission is NA1, the administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration, Brian Williams, who is in Saudi Arabia today and could not be here in person, but he has recording a message that he wanted to share with all of you before we get the opportunity to have a panel to discuss this. So let's hear what Administrator Williams wants to share. No sound.
And strengthen strategic deterrence. NNSA has an ambitious vision for leveraging AI from machine learning and large language models to NNSA is thrilled to be a partner in the launch of Project Genesis, the Department of Energy's groundbreaking artificial intelligence initiative. Project Genesis, directed by President Trump's executive order, will accelerate scientific discovery and enhance our national defense in countless ways. The nuclear security enterprise brings decades of experience in research and development of AI and machine learning. Project Genesis will harness this deep technical expertise to bolster the nation's nuclear security and strengthen strategic deterrence. NNSA has an ambitious vision for leveraging AI from machine learning and large language models to frontier generative AI and the use of AI agents. These resources will fuel atomic science, optimize our production operations, and cultivate a workforce that leans into technological change. AI has the potential to transform each of NNSA's wide-ranging missions, from delivering the nuclear stockpile and fueling the nuclear fleet to preventing the proliferation of nuclear weapons to foreign states and terrorists. Project Genesis will play a key role in our strategy for applying AI across NNSA. This AI strategy is premised upon harnessing our collective ingenuity, nurturing a culture that embraces technological innovation, and accelerating AI's integration across the enterprise. Our national laboratories are the crown jewels of the United States research and innovation ecosystem. Through Project Genesis, the labs will develop technologies and provide thought leadership to drive AI-based innovation. Combining the power of AI with NSA's world-class high-performance computers will solve technical challenges by accelerating design cycles, improving manufacturing processes, and understanding material properties. NNSA and our laboratory partners are building on our high-performance computing experience to develop AI infrastructure and deliver novel capabilities. This includes the laboratory's partnership with OpenAI, 3 of the 10 most powerful supercomputers on Earth, including the world's fastest, El Capitan, and the recently announced partnership between Los Alamos National Laboratory, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, and NVIDIA to build 2 new supercomputers, mission, and vision. These next-generation systems will provide intrinsic AI capabilities that are integral to Project Genesis. They will drive new AI capabilities for both the classified and unclassified missions of NNSA and DOE. We in NNSA are excited to partner with our colleagues in the Office of Science under the leadership of my friend Dr. Dario Gil, the Genesis Mission Director, and across DOE to capitalize on the department's leadership in developing AI applications that secure America's future.
Okay, so now we're going to have an opportunity to configure the stage, and now do allow me to bring on stage. Let me start with Admiral Papano, John Wagner, Connor, and Brian. So, and I think there are mics here, so I'm going to distribute a few. There you go. Thank you. Sure, let me sit over here and I'll give you, who's missing a mic? Right here. One, there you go, perfect. All right, are they on or? Okay, so why don't we start first with just a brief round of introductions, and I'm going to start with the Admiral going first, and then we're going to give context for each one of your roles, but let's just introduce the panel. So Admiral.
Thank you, Gil. So, Scott Papano, I am the Principal Deputy Administrator at the National Nuclear Security Administration. So you heard from my boss, Administrator Williams, and so he sets the vision for the organization. He laid that out pretty well. My job is to figure out how to go execute that vision for him and the Department of Energy. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Wagner. I'm the director at Idaho National Laboratory, and I got to say, what a pleasure it is to be here with you all today. I actually have had the opportunity to work at 3 different national laboratories in my career, and I want to say that although I'm the director at Idaho National Laboratory, I'm here in a different role, in a different capacity as the chair of the National Laboratory Directors Council. As the name sort of implies, the 17 lab directors have all get together in this National Lab Director Council to work on common items of interest. And it's been my privilege this last year to be their chair. And so thank you for having me, Dario.
Good afternoon, Connor Prohaska. I'm the director of ARPA-E, and I also am the chief AI officer for the department here, and I've been working very closely with Undersecretary Gil to move this program to a place where now we can go start kicking some butt. So,
I like that. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Spears. I'm from Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. I have worked in our initial confinement fusion program on the quest to deliver ignition. And on top of that, I'm about as excited as I can possibly be to be here today as the technical director of the Genesis mission.
All right, well, wonderful. So we're going to talk on a few areas, but one of the areas that I'm particularly excited is how we are going to all work together. And John, let me start with you, because as you mentioned, 17 national laboratories, there is precedent to do things together across the national laboratories, the Exascale program and other initiatives. But tell us about you've been part of this story since the beginning, right? We meet every week, right, with all the 17 lab directors, and we talk about it. So give us some context for what is it going to take for all the national laboratories to work together to make the Genesis mission a success, and maybe some past experiences and some of the things we should be looking out for.
Sure. Let me add a little context first, if I may. And that is that, of the 17 laboratories, each of us have a primary mission space, whether that's national security, energy, science, or environmental. And many of the laboratories actually work in multiple mission areas as well. Each of us are embracing AI capabilities for our mission and for the operations of the laboratory as well. And so actually I remember meeting together with them in January talking about this, and we're all embracing AI for our respective, to advance our mission and mission delivery.
So if I can interrupt just for the audience, these are the watch parties, so I just wanted to give a shout out across all the natural laboratories. So I just want to wave to you. So that's all. Please.
And so, again, we're all embracing AI for mission delivery and operations of our laboratories. But what I would call the genius of the Genesis mission is bringing those individual capabilities together in a collective way. Bringing together, again, because we tend to think about our own problems. I tend to think a lot about nuclear reactor deployment and things like that that's in our mission space. But bringing together the experts, the models, the data, the computing across all 17 to achieve a platform that we all benefit from is different than what we've been doing. Now, you mentioned, what are some past experiences? We do have great past experiences of a subset of the laboratories coming together for problems of national interest, whether that's the Genome Project, whether that's the Exascale Computing Project. But at least in my career, and prior to maybe the origin in the Manhattan Project, we've not all come together around one common collective drive. And that is historic, and that is the Genesis mission.
So there you go. All of you, all our national laboratories, all working together. So on that spirit also, Admiral, I wanted to ask, one of the things that, novice coming into this world, they say, well, it's just completely different worlds. What happens, for example, in the Office of Science, in the applied offices, in NNSA. But one of the hallmarks of this mission has been how closely we've been working together and how committed we are to make this work, respecting each other's missions, but knowing that we have to do this. Could you comment on that aspect of it? What has been motivating NNSA to say, yeah, we're all in on this together?
Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Gill. And certainly our close collaboration so far has been a hallmark of how we're working together here, and imperative that we keep moving that forward here. I think simply put, the NNSA view of this in the larger, Genesis mission is tying those things together, across the enterprise is nothing short of a strategic national imperative, right? That is something that we can drive to maintain our global advantage, from now and for future generations to make sure we can maintain that by unlocking the scientific discovery, speeding the discovery across, by working together, get those solution sets faster. And to me, it's not even just the science. You alluded to this some already. I want to drive those outcomes in research and development outcomes, right? What do I derive from that? And not only in research and development, it's actually in production and manufacturing as well. How do I tie that to the discrete outcomes that NNSA has to produce for national security objectives? And so I think that, again, strategic national imperative to do this. This is what's going to lock down our future for, and ensure our strategic deterrence for generations to come.
And it's been interesting to create a governance model where we have an integrated leadership team, right? Coming from the labs, from the program offices, making the appropriate decisions. But one of the spirit I wanted to be able to transmit, and hopefully comes across, is that we're unified in how we are going to execute this. And I think that is going to be the secret to our success. So Brian,
Yeah.
what are we going to build? So you've been involved and you've been incredibly passionate in driving a lot of the technology capabilities of what we're going to build. So tell us more about it, right? Both, the platform, where we are. We have very aggressive milestones,
We do.
right? So share a bit what's coming.
Okay, well, this is the most exciting part. That's where we make the nerd-to-nerd connection, where we talk to all the scientists and engineers and the minds across the department. What we're doing is building out the platform with a capital P, and we're building it right now. And I'd like people to understand two things. One is it's not a tomorrow thing. We're doing it today. We have AI capabilities that can reach into the 8 decades of assets that we built out across the department and do things that you would think were science fiction if you didn't have your fingers on the keyboard today. And the second thing, other than it's today, is that it does unleash the capability of those full 8 decades, the high-performance computing, the frontier experimental capabilities, the high-precision and high-consequence production capabilities. So the thing we're building is that platform. And the way you should think about it is computational intelligence put in closed and self-reinforcing loops with that 8 decades of DOE capability so that we can have an idea generated by our human scientists. We can amplify it with AI, we can test it in simulation, we can refine it in experiment, We can build it and see what we made and do all of that over and over and over again on timescales that approach the time of compute rather than the time of human thinking. So we can do what we've always done in an incredible way, and we can do qualitatively better, qualitatively faster discovery. So the platform is the engine that will transform us, and they're guided by the lighthouse problems, by the grand challenges that we've laid out. But the thing that really is getting the technical team up and going is the actual platform. And for those who may not be aware as we launch this, the technical team has been running with what I would call a furious operational tempo for a few weeks now. And we have in hand the initial demonstrations of the components that are the V0 of the platform. And within a few months, you will see the full interoperation of those. And by the end of this fiscal year, you will see the minimum viable product that we can deliver for the nation. So it just could not be more technically exciting, both in what we're building and the impact we think it's going to have.
So Brian, one of the, sometimes a platform can sound a little bit abstract, but in the lingo of the world of the national laboratories and the things we do, we are accustomed to building incredible scientific instruments, right? And so one way to think about it is that this may be the most complex and sophisticated scientific instrument that we will ever create. And the reason for that is because not only of the scale of the AI supercomputers and quantum supercomputers that we're going to bring together, but crucially, because we're going to connect them to our existing scientific instruments. And if I go back in the 70s and I was telling you, hey, we're going to build the world's largest computer, and I told you about this thing we're starting called TCP/IP, and this is going to be this protocol, and we're going to connect just a few computers between a few different university sites. Maybe at the beginning it wouldn't have sounded that exciting, but when you fast forward and you realize that that was the origin of the internet and the implication that that had, they would have been very consequential, right? And in hindsight, you will look back and say, wow, that really transformed the direction of the world. Well, in similar fashion, there are intrinsic new capabilities that we're creating from scratch, but it is because we are going to connect them. It is because we're going to form these closed loop systems that we will end up recognizing this thing that we're building, this Genesis Science and Security platform, as the equivalent of those capabilities that for which we now understand there was a before and an after. So, Connor, now we don't get to build this alone. As amazing as this group of people are and all our scientists and engineers, this is complex enough, requires enough capital and enough talent that even this amazing group of people, and they are amazing, they cannot do it alone. So partnerships, why do we need them, and what are we going to do different about them?
Well, we need them for just that reason. This is not just a whole of DOE effort, and this is not just a whole of government effort. This is a whole of country effort, similar to some of the big projects that we've seen in our past. And the private sector, as Undersecretary Gill alluded to, is putting a lot of capital and a lot of capability behind these machines, these algorithms, building out this ecosystem. So we'd be foolish not to, is the first piece. But it's going to take new and different ways of doing business. As you can tell, we're not waiting around. And so we're not going to wait months and months for a CRADA or months and months for an SPP. We want to go out and find the best way to interact with these private industry companies that benefits them and benefits us and raises the country as a whole and as an ecosystem. And they're excited about it. I don't think we've had a single one that has said, no, not really for us. They want to come work with all of you and everybody that's on the video, because they know that these are some of the brightest minds in our country. And they want to help us solve the big problems. Who doesn't want to tackle big problems? Nobody wants to do easy things all the time. They want to make big impacts. And that's what these private companies want to do as well. So it's easy when you're selling a good product, I think. And we've got a pretty awesome product here at the Department of Energy. And so they're pretty excited.
Thank you. So John, I want to ask you, what you're hearing bottom up. So in the end, sometimes you launch an initiative, you can sort of design it from the top, you think you're very excited about it, but if it doesn't either reflect the times, what is really happening, and it reflects already, to some degree, the zeitgeist of the community, it's hard to get traction, right? That's how and things end up misaligned. You think we're going to go over here, but really the whole community is going over there, and it's misaligned. My belief is that the reason that this is going to succeed is because there's a movement in science and engineering already. And, and sometimes I joke a bit that in the context of our community, we'll have a third of the community who is like, boy, I can't believe you weren't doing this 3 years ago. I totally get it. Like, I'm way ahead of you. There may be a third that is already looking at it like, I'm not sure whether this is going to work or not. Let me see what happens. And maybe there's a third who is like, I think this is totally the wrong thing to do, right? And that's okay. That's okay. And my joke is that we should concentrate a lot of energy and passion on the top third, because the success of that will convince the middle third, and then that is going to go away. I'm not making a statement in DOE. I'm sure everybody is on the same page. But like, it's a general statement around the world. But I wanted to hear about what you hear either from your labs or other peer labs when you meet as a National Lab Director Council of the bottom up. Is there an appetite and an enthusiasm to apply this computing revolution to all fields of science and engineering?
So yes. However, let me build on something you said, because you're absolutely right in terms of not everybody is in the same place on their journey. But let me say top down and then bottom up. So top down, as I mentioned, when all the lab directors, all the lab directors don't agree on everything. It might be surprising. But when we got together and we said, okay, as we think out into the future, what's the one or few things that we absolutely all care deeply about and would invest our time and resources in? It was AI and efficiencies in operating our laboratories. Again, we all have different missions, but we all saw the benefits of both of those things to each of our laboratories. And so that's where the top is, and that has not wavered at all, as you know well from interacting with them. So bottoms up, one of the things that I think is important is for individuals to understand what it means. What are these capabilities? What is this vision? And they're processing that, and they're in different places in processing that. And so I'll say just for our laboratory, I became incredibly enamored, I will say, after the lab directors did an AI jam. And I personally was engaging with these tools. And I think, Ryan, you were there, and Chris Ritter was there. And that was when that was a pivot point in my engagement. I knew it was important, but then I saw personally how important it was. And so we set a goal at our laboratory to have everyone using AI capabilities every day within a year, to try to bring people along on that journey. And so I think, as you already said, people are at a different place on that journey, but as soon as they it's sort of revealed to them, or they have some personal experience to help them understand what does all this mean, and what does it mean to the opportunities that you have as a researcher, or even an operations person in a laboratory, they get excited. And so, like I said, they're all in a different place, but it is incredible, because then it becomes contagious, as you sort of probably already know.
By the way, just to tell a brief story of connecting the dots, just to see what's possible. In 1971, there was a project that got started at Brookhaven on something that became known as the Protein Data Bank. And that was an effort to use light sources and over time X-ray crystallography and so on to take proteins that are the building blocks of life and map them into what is their overall three-dimensional structure of these proteins. And slowly but surely, decade after decade, there was an exponential growth of the number of proteins that were mapped using these light sources. And it was complemented with simulations as the capability improved. So it took decades to get 200,000 proteins mapped. And then there was a change in methodology. And this change in methodology was driven by the advances that were happening in AI with deep learning and reinforcement learning techniques and so on. And a group of DeepMind, Google DeepMind, leveraged that data set that had been created by the Department of Energy and academic collaborators and went from 200,000 proteins to all of them, 200 million, all known proteins in a few years. That work was recognized last year with the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. So there's nothing unique about applying this methodology to proteins. This is going to work for all areas of science and engineering. It's just a question of time. Some areas have better structure of data and methodologies that they can apply. Some are lagging a little bit behind. But there will not be a single area, not one, in science, in mathematics and engineering that is not going to be transformed by what is happening right now. But think about that. 200,000 took 30 years, and then, poop, an inflection point because the methodology changed. That's the opportunity ahead. The National Laboratories of the United States is the greatest platform for scientific discovery and engineering in the physical sciences ever created. We have enormous strengths in the talent, in the data sets, in the scientific instruments, and in our missions that we pursue. The consequences of what we're going to do, the reason why everybody should be excited about it, is because it will touch every single discipline in science and engineering and every single mission. Some will move at different speeds, as I said, but there is no turning back. Mathematicians are notoriously challenging crowd, right? Like they go and they are very, 3 years ago when LLMs were coming to being and so on, AI, actually the current LLMs were terrible at math. I don't know if you guys use them, like they would make all sorts of mistakes and so on. But if you look at the progress, what has happened since then, it is night and day. So now, even the discipline that is the most skeptical on the potential of doing, of being able to transform how these unknown problems get solved, they have now a different viewpoint of how this is going to change even very pure mathematics. So just take that we are in the cusp of something very profound. It's not going to take decades. So I'll leave you with one final, it's my only fear in a moment of only hope, which is time. The one thing we don't have is time. The failure mode that I could see in this happening is that the complexity of the things we have to do and the sophistication and the constraints that we have, that we don't move fast enough comparable to what is actually happening in this computing revolution. And then we don't move fast enough in applying it to our missions. That's the one thing to look out for. But that is something that with awareness and by being united and then doing the act of persuasion, not just among ourselves, but with Congress, with the American public, we have to do that job of showing why this is a great investment, demonstrating results, Brian, on the time to solution, and proving that the methodology delivers the good. But we gotta have the utter conviction that, and this is part of what I was saying in the comparison to the Manhattan Project. In the Manhattan Project, there was the urgency, the existential threat of the war. Now, that same sense of urgency, of accountability that we gotta deliver, is what it's called for in the moment. So I wanna thank my co-panelists. I wanna thank all of you and all our attendees who are participating virtually for joining us today. And I know I can speak on behalf of the entire leadership team and the meeting that we had with the president on Monday, in that we're counting on all of you for our success, and thank you.